Unless you've been living under a rock recently, you've probably noticed that new car prices are getting a little bit insane. I mean, seriously, this is what some of y'all look like at the car dealership.
312 monthly payments at 112% interest. It cost him an arm and a leg.
So instead of signing your life away on a new car payment, why not make an older vehicle like the 4th generation 4Runner last basically forever? Well, today I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on exactly how to do so. Now, these aren't super complicated mechanic only type things. These are beginner friendly and simple, and pretty much anybody can do them. The first tip I have for you is that you can't polish a turd. And what I mean by that is when you buy your vehicle, you definitely want to wait and get a vehicle that's been well taken care of, as opposed to just thinking that you can fix something up. I know that I've found myself thinking in the past of buying a cheaper vehicle that's in worse shape with the idea that, oh, I'm going to fix it up, make it nice. You want to make sure you're starting with a good platform. You want to get a vehicle that has maybe good service history, hasn't been in a ton of accidents, doesn't already have a ton of impending damage, something that you need to do a lot of work on. Not saying that buying a vehicle in disrepair and fixing it up isn't a good budget way to do things, but if you want a car that's around for the long haul, you're going to want something that has been well taken care of. That means vehicles that haven't had big engine issues in the past, haven't had rust issues or anything like that, and haven't been in a lot of accidents. Now, it's not impossible to maintenance your way out of a really rough starting point or put a lot of work into a vehicle to make it nice. I did some of this with my 2006 Sequoia that I bought. It's just going to require a lot of patience, effort, and you're always in for a little bit more work than you think you're in for. So having a good starting point is really important. Even if it means spending a little bit more on the vehicle when you purchase it, it really is worth it. The next way to keep your 4Runner running forever is to do routine oil and fluid changes. Now, it doesn't really have to get super complicated. I'm not out here draining the differential fluid. I'm not out here doing super complicated jobs. It's just like engine oil, transmission fluid, brake fluid. But if you're just really a beginner, I would really just stop with engine oil and coolant, which we'll talk about more in a second. I would recommend not cheaping out when it comes to oil. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to go get OEM Toyota fluids all the time. But don't just go to Walmart and get the cheapest, crappiest oil you can just to save money. Don't expect to go into a Take 5 oil change and get good quality oil. Usually I try to buy a more premium brand of oil, a synthetic oil that's going to last, and I change it frequently. I change every 12,000 miles or 1 year, whichever comes first. I don't want bad oil sitting in the engine. It's really not going to do anything except cause problems for you. And the good thing about these 4Runners is they are so easy to change the oil on. It literally takes like 10 minutes. The drain bolt's at the bottom. The oil filter is very easily accessible. Anybody can do it as long as you have very simple and basic skills working on vehicles. It's definitely something I do myself. I don't have to take it to a shop, and you shouldn't have to either. Like I said, you don't necessarily have to do every single little fluid flush and change. Now, of course, it doesn't hurt to do that, but I mean, let's just face it. Not everybody has all the time to drain each and every little fluid, check it, and replace it regularly. Now let's move on to one of the most important things with these 4th Gen 4Runners, and that is the health of the cooling system. Now what I'm talking about here is the radiator, the thermostat, and the coolant levels. Now this protects against head gasket issues and cracking exhaust manifold issues, because basically what causes those two is your car overheating or getting too hot, or those are the main causes for that. And so you don't want to play around with having a coolant leak. You don't want to play around with a crappy old radiator that needs to be replaced, because those two issues that I mentioned, the head gasket and the exhaust manifold, those are very pricey, and you want to avoid that at all costs to keep your 4Runner running for the long haul. So if your radiator is looking brown, if you have a coolant drip and you have to add coolant every so often miles, or if your thermostat on your dashboard is broken, those are all things that I would get fixed if you want your car around for the long haul. Now, not to say that you can't get by with these issues, but again, we're going for 100% guaranteed longevity, getting the most out of your car that you can. So the whole heating system is very important with the operation of these vehicles. Now let's move on to rust prevention. These things are infamous for rusting, especially if it's a northern car. You know, salting the roads causes frame rust, and if your frame is rusty, you're basically screwed. A lot of people know that. Though people will post in Facebook groups looking at cars, the car will be beautiful, the paint will be in great condition, the interior will be in great condition, and it'll have a rusted frame. And trust me, you do not want a rusted frame. So rust prevention is key. Now, I have the luxury of being in the South, where rust isn't as prominent. All these vehicles, these 4Runners that I own, have no rust issues pretty much at all whatsoever. But up north, it is an absolute big killer of 4Runners. Now, rust prevention looks basically like washing your undercarriage regularly, making sure if you drive it in the winter and there's salt on the roads, get up under there with a hose or a power washer, spray off the frame. If you do see any rust, treat it. And a lot of people also like to do some sort of coating, undercarriage coating, which helps a lot with rust. That can be pricey, but if you're wanting to have this car around for the long haul, it's 100% worth it. So I see more often than not, rust is probably the number one killer of these vehicles. So many people have rust issues, and it breaks my heart to see absolute mint condition 4Runner have to get totaled out or frame swapped because of rust. And so this is probably the thing you need to look out for the most. Another tip I have for these 4Runners would be fix your engine codes. Now, it's very tempting if you have a check engine light on, but it doesn't affect your driving, to just leave it alone, not really care about it, and be like, oh, well, it's not my problem. You know, I can still drive from point A to point B and back, basically uninterrupted with no issues, no big deal. More often than not, these check engine codes are something small like a sensor or whatever it is. You just need to go ahead and get it fixed, because you don't want your car running with problems continuously. Although you may not think that it's going to do anything, over time these codes can, get worse, cause problems, and you just don't want to have to deal with that. If you can go ahead and get in front of the issue, fix it quickly, maybe it's not something that's super expensive, it just takes a few hours on the weekend, you need to go ahead and knock it out. I alone am a victim of this a lot, just because if it's like some sort of little sensor that I don't really care about, and I'm like, this emission sensor, whatever it is, I don't really care, but you need to knock it out soon. Also, if you ever do want to sell this vehicle, a clear dash is a big plus for buyers when they're looking. So go ahead and clear those dash codes. It will definitely help you in the long run. Another one that I don't really see that many people talk about is the mass airflow sensor. This is near and dear to me because the mass airflow sensor in my silver 2006 4Runner gave me absolute fits. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what the problem was. First, it started with kind of a jumpy gear shifting, which of course I thought at first was a transmission. And then it was poor fuel economy. And then it got to the point where it would not shift out of first gear. And I thought I had some serious problems with my car. But it turns out it was just a bad mass airflow sensor. So ever since that day, I have really made it a point to clean my mass airflow sensor, to maintain it, to replace it after a certain period of time, because that little sensor can cause all kinds of problems, and it's just something that's cheap and it's easy. And why not go ahead and do it if it's going to save you on all this trouble and headache in the long run? So I don't really see that many people talk about it, I guess just because it's such an easy fix. But definitely keep an eye on your mass airflow sensor for the future. Now, I wouldn't be a 4th generation 4Runner video if I didn't bring up the timing belts on the V8 engines. I know people were already typing their comments talking about the timing belt. The timing belt will kill your V8 engine. Now, it is an interference engine, which means if you have a V8 model of the 4Runner and your timing belt breaks while you're driving it, you're basically screwed. It's going to basically destroy your engine. So yes, it does suck to have to spend $1,000 on a new timing belt and get the water pump, timing belt, and all the labor in, $1,000+ at a shop, or a big pain in the butt if you want to do it yourself. Some people are going to say, oh, it's not that hard of a job, but really it's a big labor-intensive job, and it's not for a beginner. So definitely get those timing belts replaced on your V8 4Runners, because if they break, it's over, buddy. Another thing to keep an eye on is your front suspension. If you truly want to take your car into the high 200, 300, 400, 1,000+ miles, you're going to need to replace the front suspension components at some point. These parts, while they are high quality, they're not made to consistently go into the 400,000 or 500,000 mile range. It's just part of it. Parts don't last that long. It's almost impossible. Now, there are rare cases where sometimes they go on forever and you can drive it until it breaks. But if you want the consistency and the reliability into the 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 miles, you're going to have to replace your front suspension parts at some point. That is definitely not a super beginner job if you're someone that doesn't really work on cars very often. Front suspension replacement can be a little bit intimidating. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind as you continue to put more miles on these vehicles. One last bonus tip I want to throw in here is the dashboard. These things notoriously crack on these vehicles, especially the 03 to 05. The dashboard will crack if it has a lot of UV and sun exposure. So keep that in mind if you're parking your vehicle outside every single day. Maybe invest in a sun screen for your windshield or something like that, because these things crack and it looks terrible. Sometimes they can even start crumbling and caving in. And a new one ain't cheap, that's for sure. They do make covers for these that are like $120, $150. Those are a decent option, but trust me, you would rather have your OEM dash in good shape. So keep that in mind as these vehicles, are out and about more and they age and they get older. Keeping the dash in good shape is going to be something that you definitely won't regret. So to summarize, these vehicles can last extremely long if you just basically put in minimal effort to maintain them. I'm in Facebook groups where I see people posting 4, 5, even 600,000 miles on these vehicles, which is just insane to think about. Now, I have 3 4Runners, and the highest mileage on one of mine is 225,000 miles, which is a lot. But if you do it right, you can get so much more out of these vehicles than you ever thought you could. And the peace of mind of not having to pay a large car payment every month is great. It just gives me so much freedom. And on top of all of this, I just like the car. I enjoy working on my 4th generation 4Runners. I love the platform. There's just not much that I don't like about them. They're so simple. They're so easy. The parts are readily available. It's just a winner. This car is a winner. These are my beginner tips to help your 4th generation 4Runner run forever. Now, I know I probably missed something along the way in this video, so comment your favorite or maybe an unknown maintenance thing that you do on your 4th gen. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.